Good day, everyone. I want to talk to you today about legal and really legal from an HR perspective. And really just to highlight some of the things that HR should really consider in ensuring that the roles and responsibilities that they have are done in accordance to the different laws and regulations that govern the HR practice. Now, we have to understand that compliance from a legal and perspective as it relates to HR is of paramount importance, and that the law touches everyone that falls under the HR umbrella. Now, I just quickly want to highlight five key laws that HR should ensure that they're compliant with. One is the workplace and discrimination laws. Two, wages and hours law. Three would be the employee benefits, right? Fourth would be employee safety. And of course, importantly, immigration laws as well. And each of these different laws has different acts that govern. For example, the workplace discrimination law has under that particular law the American Disabilities Act, right? It also has the Age Discrimination Act as well, and has the Equal Pays Act that governs or that comes under those law as well, right? So each of these different laws, for example, the Wage and Hours Law as well, also has the Fair Labor Standards Act as well. Now, we're going to now focus really on COVID 19, and really the pandemic has taken hold of businesses and every aspect of business, and HR is no exception. Now, we really want to look at some questions that may be asked of HR, and that's really what we want to focus on today, along with some risks that could materialize due to remote recruiting. And why we want to focus on remote recruiting is because a lot of remote working is currently happening in the workplace or in the working environment, and therefore we also have to look at remote recruiting. So, one question that could be asked: what if an employee does not want to come back to work because they're in fear of contracting COVID-19? Well, if that employee has a pre-existing condition, then they may be eligible for leave under the American Disabilities Act, right? Or under the Family and Medical Leave Act as well. Now, if that person does not have an existing condition, then the employer may require that employee to present themselves at work and may face disciplinary action if they don't. So that's interesting to look at. Two, what are the key points related to leave associated with COVID 19? Right? So the Families Act, the Families First Corona Response Act, became effective in April of 2020. And this really helps to ensure that persons, and this extends to family as well, can actually, be covered when it comes to getting leave from the workplace because of COVID-19, right? Third question that could be asked: can an employer be held liable if an employee contracts COVID 19 and their family, by extension, also contracts COVID 19? And the answer to that is no. The employer cannot be held liable, and HR would be faced with this question because the question will be asked: what has the company done to ensure that the employee is protected and that their family is protected? But they cannot be held liable. And a fourth question that could be asked is also: what are the best practices that could be used to ensure that you manage remote workers during COVID-19? Right? And working from home. And I have to look at, there are many challenges that could happen. You can look at performance evaluation, leave management, you could look at wages, you could look at also the hours and how those are managed. But what has to happen from an HR perspective is that policies and procedures has to be, or have to be rather, modified to ensure that they fit these scenarios and that they take certain things into consideration. Of course, certain acts, when they were created, did not take into consideration remote working. For instance, the Family Leave Act did not take into consideration, when it was established in 1993, remote working. And so these acts had to be modified, or a new act had to be created to facilitate remote working, right? And so HR has to ensure that they help the employers to create a framework that will ensure that employees and these challenges are faced, they're met, and they're taken care of in the best way possible. Now, we want to look at some risk as it relates to recruiting remotely from an HR point of view and what these risks could be. First one, employment notice. Of course, during remote recruiting, job postings will be placed on different sites, company website, different media forms, and we have to ensure that job postings are in line with different states. And so employee and HR has to ensure, employers and HR has to ensure that these are taken into consideration. Secondly, is disparate impact, right? A disparate impact is where not all candidates being recruited may have access to technology, and this may be a cause for concern. Therefore, the Disabilities Act has to be taken into consideration to ensure that each candidate is given a fair opportunity. Thirdly, Zoom may pose some challenges as well, because recruiting through Zoom may expose a company to possible reputational damage if the candidate has recorded the video. And so certain things like non-disclosure agreement forms or an agreement that the video is not recorded and not shared or uploaded has to be signed by the candidate. And of course, certain states also require the employer to notify the candidate that they're actually being recorded. And finally, security and privacy as well. We have to ensure that adequate measures are put in place to ensure that security and privacy of information, whether it is from the company's point of view or the candidate's point of view, are protected. So we have to ensure that adequate measures are put in place. For instance, for example, the candidate use a private network instead of a public network, or a secured video application is used to conduct the interview. So these are just a few of the legal, matters that HR could face due to the current pandemic. And I hope this was informative. Thank you and have a great day.